Solving algebraic expressions can be very tricky, so there's some steps here to help you keep everything in order. First of all, read the question a couple times to make sure you understand it. When you're ready to start, identify the unknown amount and label it with a let x equal statement. I generally pick the least complicated number to be my variable. Now, I keep saying I'm going to use the variable x, but really any letter can be used as a variable. As long as you're just using one variable, we'll all get the same answer. So I read the question and I choose the least complicated number to be my variable, and I write down let x equal, and then I say what it's going to equal. Just so you understand, x can only equal one number. It can't equal a group of numbers or multiple numbers or multiple things. It can equal one thing. If there are multiple objects in your question, you need to move on to step 2 and label all the other quantities in terms of x. Don't introduce a new variable like y. Relate everything back to terms of x. When that's finished, write an equation and then finally solve your equation for x. I have a couple examples here to try. Number 1 says, when 18 is subtracted from 6 times a certain number, the result is 96. What is the number? Well, step 1 says I have to label my variable, let x equal. In this question, the least complicated number I see is the one that they've just called a certain number. So I'm going to say let x equal the number. Remember, it can only equal one number. Now this is a fairly simple question. It only has one unknown, so there's no need to move on to step 2. Instead, I need step 3 where I build an equation. The question had said when 18 is subtracted from 6 times a certain number, the result is 96. Now I'm going to call the certain number x. So 6 times a certain number is going to be represented by 6x. And minus 18 will show 18 being subtracted from 6 times a number. Finally, they told me the result was 96. Now I have an equation that I can solve. Remember, your first step is to get the x terms by themselves. To do that, I need to move the 18 over to the right hand side by adding 18 to both sides of the equation. Negative 18 plus 18 makes 0 on the left hand side, and now I have 6x equals 114. Then divide both sides by 6 so that your x is on its own. X equals 19. The questions can be a little bit more difficult than that though. Question number 2 here is a little bit more complicated. The sum of 3 consecutive numbers is 135. What are the 3 numbers? Well, first of all, you have to understand what consecutive numbers mean. Consecutive numbers are numbers that are in a row, like 1, 2, and 3, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11, 12. So the sum of 3 consecutive numbers is 135. When I write my let x equal statement, I need that x variable to represent the least complicated number. And in this case, I'm going to call it the smallest of the 3 numbers. Since there are 3 numbers that I'm looking for, I'll need to label the second number and the third in terms of x as well. Now consecutive numbers come one after another, so if I know what the smallest number is, I just need to add 1 to find the second number, or from the smallest add 2 to find the third. So I'm going to now say let x plus 1 equal the middle number, and let x plus 2 equal the larger number. Now I've labeled all 3 of my unknown numbers. it's very important that you use the same variable for each of the three numbers and don't introduce a new variable like y. Now go back to the question and see what they're telling you to do. It says that the sum of those three consecutive numbers equals 135. So if I take my smallest number and I add it to my middle number, which was x plus 1, and add that to my largest number, x plus 2, I'm going to get an answer of 135. Now we have an equation that we can solve. Collect your like terms, and then isolate your x. Finally, divide both sides by 3, and you've got your final answer. It might be necessary for you to go back to your let x statement to see what that number represents. Since I'm looking for three numbers, I am going to go back, and I see that x represents the smallest of my three numbers. So the smallest number is 44. X plus 1 is my middle number. 44 plus 1 is 45. And x plus 2 is my larger number, 44 plus 2, which is 46. So my three numbers are 44, 45, and 46.